My name is Joseph Mullen. I'm going to be doing a 2,000-mile kayak paddle starting May 2017 for Mission 22. This is to bring awareness that 22 veterans a day are committing suicide because they're not getting the help they need for PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. So a lot of people don't understand what's PTSD, how do you get it? Um, it's a psychological condition, they say, caused by trauma events throughout one's life. And especially for veterans, it's mainly brought on by what they see when they're in war. I can't talk about that. I am a disabled veteran, but I never went in country during Vietnam. But my PTSD stems for life events. And the only thing I can do is explain to you about mine. How did it come about? Um, did it happen suddenly? Did it happen over time? Mine actually came from over time. Um, molested by my best friend's uncle. When I was 13, I watched a guy burn to death in his car at a traffic accident because he couldn't get his seatbelt undone. Um, Watching my first wife die of cancer over a period of 3 years, and I happened to be in the hospital the day she died, and her mother came in. Her mother and her aunt came in to visit, and when her mother walked into the room, where there's only two people allowed in the room, so I had to leave. And her mother and aunt walked in, and she opened her eyes, looked at her mother, closed her eyes, and flatlined. Um, on hearing that, I immediately went in the room, told them to get out, sit there, and jumped on top of the bed and started doing CPR until the doctor and the nurses showed up with the crash cart. And then he tried to revive her with the paddles. And after about 5 or 6 attempts, I told him to knock it off. She didn't want to come back. She wanted to go. She was tired. She fought a good long fight. I did underwater recovery for 20 years. Got a call at like 10 o'clock one night to go throw a hook on a truck that had gone in the water. Um, we had a device we were using. It was a ring with a couple of small chains and hooks on the ends. And we hadn't used it in a while, and the chief found it and couldn't remember why we didn't use it anymore. So he asked me to go out and hook it to this truck to try to find out what was going on. We were waiting for my backup diver, and he was long in coming. So I made the decision that, it's just hooking a truck. I went out by myself, um, put the device on the axle, pulled on it, one side came off, rehooked it, pulled on it, came off again. I slid under the truck to find out what was going on. I finally got the thing to hook. And when I went to get out, I couldn't. I go to back up and bang, it was just couldn't get out. So I laid there for like 25 minutes and I realized I got no backup coming. I can't stay there forever because I'm going to run out of air. And so I had to figure out what was going on, dig a channel down the center that I could lay in and wiggle my way out. And it turned out that the plastic air dam that's under the bumper that sits like this, the boot on my tank kept hitting right here, and it wouldn't let me out from under the truck. So, um, that kind of scares the hell out of you. And then I had a couple of, when you're doing underwater recovery, when you're entering into a domain you've never dove in before, you're not sure what you're going to find down there. You're trying to get closure for families because you're looking for someone that drowned. So you're at a heightened sense of awareness. You have to be, and you have to move slow. You have to assess the environment, assess, can I get in here and get out? Can I get in this little spot? Can I get out? Doing a lot of that. I was called on a number of times going in some really scary areas. But being an engineer and having a really good eye for detail, I could figure my way in, figure my way out. So a lot of times I got out of situations. The worst one was 1984, I believe it was. Twin engine, 10 passenger Cessna from Provincetown Boston Airline was heading to Logan Airport. Didn't make it, went in the water about 2.5 miles off the runway. Uh, we get the call, plane in the water, we point to Point Allerton, Coast Guard Station in Hull. Get down there, suit up, had to run down the the pier to the boathouse, and that's a lengthy pier. Get assigned to a boat. On the boat, off we go. Pea soup fog on the water. Can't see diddly. Um, Even the coxswain in the boat wasn't sure his radar was giving him accurate positions of things in the water. So we wound up one guy on the bow and everybody else lined up along the edge of the boat, and we were calling out lobster pots and buoys and everything that according to the radar was off to our side, and we were about to hit them. We finally got on scene. Had to wait for the fog to lift. Um, Once the fog lifted, my partner and I were the first two in the water. Did a preliminary search, found nothing. Came back up. We decided to use a Coast Guard inflatable with a Danforth anchor and actually dragged for the wreckage. And they hooked into the wreck. My partner and I, since we were already suited up, went down onto the plane, saw the carnage and the wreckage. I did a preliminary 35-foot search around the plane, figuring out which way the debris field was going, so I knew which direction he came in from, assessing what wreckage was there. I found a gallon Ziploc bag full of pills. Had to memorize each pill, color, any writing on it. As soon as I grabbed the bag and moved it, there was water in the bag. All the pills disintegrated. We marked the wreck with a marker. My buddy was looking inside the wreck, thought he saw somebody in there, wanted me to go in. The plane's sitting upside down on the bottom, so in your head you got to reverse everything because the seats are on above you, not below you. And I started penetrating the wreck and looking in between the seats, under the seats, all around, to make sure nobody was on the plane. Kept working, inching my way up, inching my way up. The pilot's wife was in the cockpit. I got to a point where I could see her face, cuts on her face, throat gashed wide open, split open, so you could see to the back of her throat. Um, anyway, I was getting close to her, and it felt like I was being electrocuted. And first thing you think of is, oh shit, there's loose wires and the battery's still connected. Um, so I did a search, feeling all around, looking around as best I could. Couldn't find any wires or anything, but when I started to move, it felt like I was being electrocuted. And call it whatever you will, energy, whatever. Um, when I looked off to my right hand side, there was a sharp piece of metal shard right at my temple that I was about ready to drive into my temple. That had a little bit of an effect on me. My buddy had to pull me out of the wreck. I couldn't get to the woman to get her out. Um, Come out, did a debriefing with my dive chief on the 41 footer, then got called to the 95 footer, another debriefing. He calls me back, brings me up on the bow, is asking me all about my search. Knowing that I'm at like 110%, I have an eye for detail. I searched every square inch. And when he held up this kid's T-shirt from the airlines, I lost it at that point. Went back to the 95. They tranquilized me. I was a mess. They were getting ready to airlift me out of there. Had nightmares for months. Um, couldn't sleep. Quit the team. Took a while to get back on the team. Went to one operation. I did pretty good. At the next operation, I was helping run it because I was an assistant dive chief. Don't know what triggered it. It was a word, a noise, just the sound of a voice or something. But I just started coming apart and had to leave. Um, Had to talk to a number of people on the team to figure out whether I wanted to stay or not. I stayed on the team. I did it for 20 years. Um, was that the right decision? Maybe not. Um, it's having PTSD things, different things trigger it. It triggers you in different ways. When I do have an episode, it's 20 or 30 feelings hitting all at once. You don't know which one to start dealing with first. It's very difficult. I can understand what these guys are going through. Um, it it's tough to handle. But the thing is, you're taught in the military to be strong. You got to be strong for the guys on either side of you. You got to be strong for your teammate and everything. And you don't have time to decompress or figure it all out on your way home because it's a short plane ride, 6 to 8 hours, and you're back in the States, and they want you to have a normal life. And there's not a lot of debriefing or anything going on, and your neighbors and your friends don't want to have anything to do with you anymore because you're not the same person that you were when you left. And your family is just like who are you? And, all this has an effect, and you're never going to be the same person. I'm not. Um, and the thing is it's difficult, but people need to understand the word has to get out. Um, I the only people I can talk to the only people I can talk to is my fellow underwater recovery divers because they've been there, they've lived it, they've been through it the same as I have, and they're the only ones who can truly understand um, what I'm going through. So that's one of the reasons I have some comprehension of what these guys are going through. Do I have a full understanding? No. Will I ever? No. Um, but I can tell these guys, um, if you want to be a strong person, ask for help. It takes a very strong person to ask for help. So my mission is to go out there and put the word out to these guys and their families. Ask for help. Get help. Um, your family loves you. Your kids love you. I know you love your family, but you need help. Um, I have four wonderful kids. They understand. They still love me. I still see them. Um, but sometimes I just have hard days. So that's all I want to say. Thanks for listening.